And welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Spencer, and we're going to be discussing Big Sky Season 2, Episode number 6, Heart
Woo!
Shaped Charm. Yeah. If you've not hit the sub button, please do so. Leave a like, leave a comment. And so they're taking another break after this week, I see. It, the scheduling on this show is insane. Like it is literally insane. And maybe all network shows are like this. I don't really watch a lot of network shows anymore, mostly streaming stuff. So it's just bizarre to me. You took a couple weeks off, you come back for 2 episodes, and now you're going to take another 2 weeks off. Then they're going to return and have 2 weeks in December, and then they're going to take a winter break. And I'm just like, it's just, I don't know. Like I said, I don't watch a lot of network TV, so maybe that's standard these days.
Well, I don't know, but I watch more network TV. But we talked about it at the beginning of this season that we felt like they had more of a direction, like they had an end game in mind. And the further it goes along and the more breaks they take, I feel like they don't now. Like they're just fucking flying by the seat of their pants and they really don't have any idea what the fuck they're doing.
I mean, there are certain storylines where, yeah, I'm scratching my head. Like, well, why are they doing that? There was something, and I guess we'll jump right into Travis. He was a major part of the episode. That was the cliffhanger last week where he was holding the gun on Ginny and Cassie, and it played out roughly like I thought it would, where he just sort of used that moment. They were like, well, there are cameras around, they let him go. But he, throughout the course of the episode, I don't, like, Ginny was doing really dumb things. And she doesn't typically, I mean, yeah, she's done some wild stuff before. But when she went back to his apartment or his hotel room at the end of the episode, to me that was insane. We had already had moments where his cover had almost been blown. We had the moment at the opening of the episode, and it's like you clearly need to stay away from him. You're putting his life in jeopardy. He gets tortured for a while, and he was clever. Actually, that was a cool scene where he threw it all to Smiley, which got him killed. But then we have the ending. I love the whole. It was interesting how it was like a miscommunication. Like Smiley does have the drugs, but not because Dietrich took them, because T-Lock has the drugs and he's working with Smiley.
Which was funny too, because that happened after the fact. Like he threw me under the bus and was like, "Nah, this dude's been stealing from you." When it all, well, he might have been.
Well, he because Smiley knew about Ginny, so he was trying to, I don't know if he was trying to get him killed or not necessarily, but maybe, yeah.
Well, it was just funny because at that point in time, there hadn't been anything that showed us that he was involved in stealing money from Dietrich. But clearly he gave in pretty quickly, so I doubt that's the first time he stole money from Dietrich.
That's a good point. But going back to the Ginny thing, so why do you keep going back to that hotel? She sees he's beat up. Dietrich shows up at the hotel. Everyone who he works with in his undercover stone persona knows that he lives there. That's not like a secret hideout. Like that's the place that all the people he works with knows he's at. Why
they
the hell
there all the time?
Yeah, why do you keep going there? And you would have thought that when she, busted through the door or, came in, he'd have been like, look, my cover was blown earlier. You got to go. I don't know. Jenny was doing a lot of dumb stuff as far as that. And then going back to the ice cream scene, it was all right. This was an episode where I thought finally we're getting some more Cassie, but at the expense, oddly, of Jenny, because now she's sort of doing stupid shit.
Well, and that's what I'm talking about. It doesn't feel like they know what they're doing or what they want their characters to be. And, we talked about it briefly when we were recording another show. And, Larry said, oh, they're doing The Walking Dead. And it made me laugh because it almost feels reminiscent of that. We've read the comics and I read all the comics, and Andrea in the show versus Andrea in the comics, they didn't know what to do with her. There's a couple other characters that felt the same way. And now that's what this show is starting to feel like. That characters aren't acting within the character they've already built. So you got Mark, who's been pretty even keeled the whole time. He's played in character the whole time. You have Jerry, who's been the same kind of person the whole time. Whereas the two main leads change week to week depending on what the hell on.
But then Mark did something stupid at the end of the episode where he has a suspicion. You know, he spends the whole episode, or well, half the episode at Legarsky's dog ranch or whatever you want to call it. He suspects, you know, Ronald could be there. You know, he has his suspicions. And as opposed to saying, you know what, I'm going to call back up and then we're going to check it out. He's like, I got this. I'm going to go in by myself. And that was our cliffhanger ending. And I mean, look, I get it, but it's a consistent thing in this show that the heroes, Mark, Jerry, Cassie, Jenny, they love going in by themselves, completely putting themselves in danger every time. And yeah, I sort of scoffed at that ending. I'm like, what are you doing?
Well, and you would think after, the 15th time they've been shot or shot at or held captive or beat up and kidnapped, that eventually it would start to sink in that perhaps they need backup, or perhaps they should, call for help, or perhaps they shouldn't be going places alone. But, I guess they're all 19 and the lessons aren't quite kicking in just yet.
Now we have, going back to the Travis thing, I said it last week and I'm doubling down this week. The best part of the show is Rin and Dono. I'm loving that duo. Everything about them. Even the torture scene was great. I don't know. It's funny because they're constantly sort of screwing up, and they're always like wrong, or you know what I mean, or a step behind everyone. But it's still they've not done anything really that I would say, oh, that's insane. I mean, a murder and everything, of course, but in terms of it makes sense that they would do it, And so I don't know. I'm really enjoying it.
Take an assault rifle, shoot at cops.
That was funny.
I mean, it's all normal.
But they're like, I don't know. They're like super villains that are fun to watch and see what happens.
Well, we talked about it last season when you had Rick and Ronald. Like, they were super fun to watch because this show is over the top. It is super fucking ridiculous. So when you have characters kind of embrace that, it makes it more entertaining. And it feels like this season it's been Ren and Dono, where the shit that they're doing is super over the top, really ridiculously crazy, and it's fun to watch them. We joked so much about it the last several episodes of Big Sky, the second shit half. You had the one brother who was dealing meth and being crazy and drawing.
Clown Maze brother.
Dude.
I don't remember any of their names.
I don't either.
None.
But, we talk about embracing the crazy.
I remember Walker. That was the other brother.
And that was funny. So, you got Ren and Dono who are doing the craziest stuff. And, they try to attack Smiley, and he ends up, Dono's getting his ass whooped, and then Ren stabs him in the back. Or even the egg thing. She's trying to make this point, like, why would you mess up something so easy and so perfect, blah, blah, blah. It's like, but is it good?
Yeah.
She's like, yes, but that's not the point. And he's like, just say it's good.
And the little apron he's wearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that has no bearing on the episode at all, but it was funny.
Yeah, you could make half the show them. She ends up her brother tries to call her Jag, and she just, ignores it. So he makes the announcement in a quick shot that I guess I'm heading there. So he's about to head there. So that's an interesting development, because that will, I don't know what that brings in another character, another enforcer. It looked like he had a guy with him, so he'll have an enforcer or two.
The best part about that, though, is that you look at Ren and Dono, and how incompetent they've been and how shitty Dono looks. He looks like an old, like, white trash members only jacket wearing, like this. And then you show Jag, and Jag's all put together, and you see his bodyguard who looks, like 6'5", 260, solid muscle, and you got Dono. So it's like you said, it's funny to watch Ren and Dono continually kind of be like a half step behind, making wrong assumptions and all this. And then you got Jag who keeps getting put on the back burner, and he's like, fuck it, I'm going to go figure it out. So now, like you said, now you're incorporating these two characters into it.
Yeah, Dono looks like if John Wayne Gacy had like started going to the gym and and was working out a little bit. Like that's sort of what he looks like. like he was trying to get his life together a little. But yeah, yeah, I love that's my favorite thing about these episodes and so far. We had talked about how we didn't know what was going on with Mark and Jerry. Jerry, they do the whole thing where they're like, "Oh, I talked to her this morning." That's not a good sign for a character on a show when people are like, "Yeah, I talked to them on the phone." It's like they were written off the show. We had a comment that said that, yeah, the actor, it was there's another show. So in fact,
Queer as Folk.
Yes, they're bringing it back. I don't know if it's a reboot or a continuation or what it is.
Reboot. Yeah, I'm not sure which one.
But yes, so yeah, Jerry is being written out at least for now. I mean, they left the door open for the character to come back, I suppose. But was that HBO Queer as Folk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that just pisses me off because then why do that? Like,
why? Yeah.
Why would you do that? Because now, to me, it almost seems shittier to have Mark pursue Cassie after that. Like, because
because now we have the lunch scene, where it's just like, hey, what's up? And it, like I said, when it came to Jerry and Mark and even Cassie, I don't think they really had a plan. I don't know how far out they knew that they were going to have to write Jerry out. And they clearly don't know what the fuck they're doing with Mark. Like, this is the first episode where he's done anything really this season. And it looks like he might get himself killed. I mean, because what happens if he sees Ronald? Like, where do we go from there?
Yeah, or Scarlett or anybody. Like, to me, they look like they're keeping people. So it's, yeah, like you said, if they find anybody. And Wolfgang was talking about, like, he had no idea his brother was doing all this stuff. But if it appears that he has anybody captive, then it's going to look like he was in on all the Rick stuff. Like, it's, to me, going to imply that he's lying in Mark's eyes. So now he puts himself in a situation where, Wolfgang's going to try and take him out. If he doesn't already, yeah, like you said, it felt like they had something going the first part of the season. And then all of a sudden, Jerry's leaving, and they were putting wheels in motion. They were like, well, fuck it. And they just basically backpedaled to set up Mark's character to be really going after the whole syndicate cartel stuff or whatever because of the human trafficking and his sister going missing. If they literally just write him out at this point and just have him die, then there's not going to be a point to his sister. Like, once again, dropping all these hints of all these storylines that they can carry out and do, and then just basically forget about it is going to be irritating. It's okay if that happens like once, maybe twice throughout a season, because I understand shit happens, but this show has done it so many times in such a short period of time that it's going to be hard to follow should it continue to do that.
And speaking of like storylines starting and ending, like Cassie's father was in the episode, and I was like, oh yeah.
Oh, that guy.
That guy. And then they mentioned the son in a couple scenes, and I was like, yeah, we've seen him once or twice this season, but I've completely. I was like, yeah, your father like lives with her or whatever, and um, but there's a scene where he's like, when I hang out and I got to talk to you, and he's just like, I want to buy a ranch, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'm just sitting. There's like no setup for this. There's no like storyline that there wasn't even a throwback to her husband who had been killed, which we've not brought up in quite some time. Where he's just like, your husband's dream, or I forget. I don't know what the character's name was, or anything, or even if we had multiple episodes where she's just like, man, I always wanted to grow up on a ranch. I don't. It was just I just sort of was like, okay, cool. I mean, I could see where you could go from there. Like in if future seasons, if the show's still running, where they're hanging out at a ranch. Like, all right, but or they could bring back in the one chick from season 1 that took over her family's ranch.
I don't think they're going to do any of that. I think the whole point of it was like they didn't want him in the show anymore, and Cassie just suddenly not having her dad around was going to cause more of an issue than to write him off with the funeral. So this is a better way to do it. Well, yeah, my dad moved out. He lives in this ranch outside of town. That's it. That's it. With everything else that's happened, dude, like I can't believe that it's going to be them setting up something for a future story. Like I 100% just believe that they're just like, yeah, well, we don't want to have to try and explain why he's not at the house anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those random scenes where I was just like, this came out of nowhere. Okay, cool. Sure. I was like, all right. A character we hadn't seen in a while, and yeah. Let's go to the kids. Things are going horrible for Max because she told her mom, which was a horrible, horrible idea, but I completely understood why at the time. She, of course, did what you said she would last week, and she told T-Lock, and then T-Lock did what we assumed he would do weeks and weeks and weeks ago. He's like, yeah, I'm going to try and sell these drugs.
Yep.
Like we called that when we first met the character. So all that played out. He had a friendship with Smiley. And of course, remember, T-Lock is supposed to be heading to that house the next morning with the stuff, I believe. They were going to hammer out the details. So if they follow up on that line of dialogue and T-Lock shows up and maybe Ren or who knows, well, maybe the police will be there, or because Dietrich was like, we got to hammer some shit out, and he was going to go, I'm assuming, talk to Smiley with Travis. So there's a potential for a lot of craziness to happen in the next episode involving T-Lock. Maybe he shows up with the drugs or whatever. I don't know. Well, the kids were smart enough not to give him the money. I thought that was funny. They're like, "Fuck it, we'll give him the drug." So we're going to say we didn't. The money's gone. But yeah.
Well, it's funny too because we talk a lot of shit about Marvel properties and how they don't know how to write villains. This is one of the few shows that I've ever watched where the villains are they're written so much better than the protagonist that it's way more interesting to watch all the bad guys try to fuck each other over than it is to watch any of the hero shit.
Maybe that is the problem with the show, actually, in a way, is all the villains are the more interesting thing because they're so outlandish and insane. You never know what they're going to do, and the protagonists are very much, like I said, I don't know, they do things that just don't make sense, or they do things like you're like, oh, like you can assume, okay, Batman, I know he's going to do this, and this, but you cannot assume that with Jenny. Like, Jenny made you some really dumb shit.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. The antagonists are supposed to do crazy shit. And in this situation, they're involved in drug running, human trafficking. Like they're involved in some awful, awful shit. So for them to, be unpredictable is easy.
Here's another. Another insane, dumb scene. So Dietrich busts into the door. Okay, Jenny's hiding on the side of the bed in the hotel room. I don't know if anybody listening has been in a hotel room like that. I have. They're tiny as shit. Okay. He comes in and he's like, "Is somebody here?" And I'm assuming he heard talking or something. It would have taken him 2 seconds to take 3 steps forward, look in the bathroom, you know what I mean, look to the side, and see what was going on. It made no damn sense for him to not look. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, wow, why didn't he look? And obviously for the story, I know why he didn't look, but it's moments like that pull me out a little bit of any show where a character does something that you're like, there's no way he wouldn't have taken 2 steps forward, and especially if he suspected something was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were too many questions arising around Travis at our Stone at that point, and he thought he heard somebody in there, and yet he's not going to look. It's like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. How are you going to run the dialogue and say the things where it's like, you talking to somebody, you hiding somebody from me, and then him not investigate? And not to do that whole sequence, I was dying laughing because all I could think of is there. We're not monetized, so it'll be okay. There's adult films where they almost always get caught. And the funniest part is where like it's somebody sitting behind a bed and you can see like their whole back. Or it's somebody who's around a corner and it's like you can see their whole arm. And there's, like you said, there's absolutely no way that even her laying on the floor, he couldn't have saw. Like, Dietrich's not 4'11". He's not David Vito walking in there where his eye level's even with the bed.
Well, I just
tall
don't.
enough where there's no way he couldn't have seen it. She wasn't laying like flat and army crawling. She was just like turtling up on the side of the bed. There's no fucking way.
He was so. Well, I mean, the thing. Let's even look at it even further. He was so ready to things are going crazy, and he was so ready not to trust Stone that he took his gun, right? And he picks up his gun off the table and he takes it. So he doesn't even want Travis to have a gun on him, and yet he's not going to take 2 steps forward in this little ass hotel, motel room, and see if there was somebody actually there or what was going on, or even just to look around, say, hey, what the fuck is going on in here? Period. What do you got going on in here? Oh, it was just one of those scenes that it needed to be reworked completely. It didn't make sense.
In a hotel room that small, there's probably a closet to hang shit up, a bathroom, and beside the beds, there's only like 3 places to fucking look. And he didn't do any of those things.
Just another one of those moments. So he has a name, Creepy Van Guy. That's what I call him.
Creary.
Creepy. He Harp. He comes to see Harp, and she's just like, "Oh, thanks for saving us." And then he comes back later, and he's never tended to the wound, so he's been bleeding out for like 2-3
days.
Yeah. And I'm like, you would be dead by now, especially the amount of, when he touched his side, the amount of fresh blood. I'm like, if you're bleeding like that nonstop for like 3 or 4 days, yeah, you're fucking dead, man. But he ends up driving the van to her looking for help, as opposed to a hospital. And we'll see where that goes. I still am curious to what that story is, as far as him. I don't know.
I think it's either Harper or Max's real dad. That's what I'm thinking. Because him looking after everybody, and I don't know Harper's parents. They haven't really mentioned it a whole lot yet, so I don't know where she comes from. And he seems to be outside her house a lot, so I'm assuming her. But I'm thinking that it's Harper's real dad or Max's real dad, because it's not T-Lock, but I'm thinking that it's Harper's just based on proximity.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's definitely possible. Something like that. Why not? I mean, shit.
Well, it's the only thing to me that makes sense, because why would this random dude be trying to protect these kids and be following them into the woods? And, he's not really all that altruistic where he's just all of a sudden, I got to keep track and help these kids. Like, that would make even less sense, which doesn't mean that it's not true, but it's, that would be even more ridiculous. But I think if he, is one of their parent or uncle or long lost big brother or something, I don't know. Father seems to be the fit the best, but sometimes it's me just trying to piece stuff together that.
I was looking at my notes. This is funny. I wrote, I was like, what did I write? I wrote Dono kills, and then it looked like I wrote Dick Trick, and then has stuff, and I was like, what the fuck was I trying to say? And I was trying to spell Dietrich. And I was like, what? Because I'm not, I watched it several days ago, so I took these notes. I haven't gone back over them. I was like, what the fuck? Dick Trick.
Yeah, he was doing a helicopter.
Well, yeah, I was thinking, was there something, that a joke or something that I couldn't remember?
He was making balloon puppets with his penis.
Yeah, I think Dono could make balloon puppets. I believe that.
Hey, well, that goes back
to his Gacy. Yeah. I think that's about it. Let me see here. I'm going through them. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, said Jag was coming. I don't want to. I have another thing to complain, but it's not important, so I'm going to skip it. Yeah, we didn't talk a whole lot about Mark. We talked a little bit about him going to the ranch. There was some, yet again, the actor that plays Legarsky, he's a good actor, and he so any lines of dialogue or any scenes he's in are always going to be elevated a little bit, and including those scenes. So yeah, there wasn't a whole lot, but there were certain lines of dialogue, especially when they were sitting at the table and they were talking, that I was just enjoying just because he was in the scene. But in terms of story progression, outside of Mark potentially figuring things out or getting killed or whatever they're going to do with that, there wasn't a whole lot. Ronald had like 2 lines of dialogue, and that was it. He got choked again. But I don't know. Any other thoughts on any that stuff? The dog ranch?
No, it's no. I just looked it up on IMDb just because it is Creary is the bearded guy, Creary, but they I was looking it up, and this last episode, this whole season's been right at like a 7-1, 7-2 as far as IMDb scores. And this last episode, which was the episode I had the most issue with outside of basically Ren and Dono, was an 8.0. And I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
Oh, they love Dono, man.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, that's weird, actually. Yeah, because it really didn't have
well, to me, it didn't tie any of the stories up. It didn't really introduce anything real big. T-Lock getting a hold of the drugs and Smiley, that's a cool little introduction and twist, but shit, we called that in like episode 2. So it wasn't like this big out of left field kind of thing. We knew it was coming. We didn't.
It was arguably one of my least favorite episodes of this season out of the 6. Yeah, I would agree, because I say it every week on here. I love the Ronald and Legarsky stuff. So, and this had the least of that. They had like no interaction this episode. We got almost no Ronald this episode. Like I said, one of my favorite episode was the one when Ronald refused to eat the beets or whatever.
Dude, that was so good.
That was a perfect episode, but as far as this show is concerned, but yeah, this episode, the lack of being a little irritated with the Jerry storyline just sort of being dropped, the Mark doing stupid shit, Jenny doing stupid stuff, not really caring for the character. I don't really care for Travis all that much. He amuses me still how he holds guns. That's funny. um, I like Cassie. I mean, you know, she was in it, had a few good scenes. Like I said, I love Ren and Dono. They had their moments, but
I haven't been in, I'm vocal about it. Cassie by herself has been great. Cassie and Jenny together, I hate it like so much. But it's funny that this episode specifically, uh, Jenny, like Cassie's scenes were all pretty decent.
it was Jenny that was annoying me. Yeah.
Dude, this episode, it wasn't Cassie that was pissing me off. It was Jenny. Like, it was just the dialogue wasn't great. Everything she did was stupid and over the top. Her falling in love with this dude who was an ex-partner that she slept with twice.
And that's what bugs me is because it feels like you've taken Jenny, who's supposedly this amazing, you know, cop, who's a great sort of private detective and all these things, who's very capable and has been capable throughout the show. And yet, because she's into this guy, now all of a sudden she's doing dumb shit.
Exactly.
That's just a cheap. Yeah, it's just a cheap, dumb way to write it. Yeah, that I think that's what's annoying me.
Well, and to me, it would make sense and it would be shitty, and it would kind of ruin Jenny's character a little bit. But if she was like, "Hey, I remember when me, you, and Cody all did this together," like they had a friendship prior to this. They just basically knew each other. This wasn't like something where they were all three best friends or something. And like, they basically just knew of each other and they fell in love in 2 weeks. Like, that's what I don't understand. That's what pisses me off. And, you know,
and she doesn't understand the undercover part. It's like she should know.
She's a cop.
And she should know how because he keeps having to re-explain it to her. He's like, it's dangerous. Hey, I'm tied in with the cartel now. I'm with this and that, and so it's like, why are you trying to blow his cover?
Well, and this is coming from me, who the only exposure I have to that kind
Donnie
of stuff,
Brasco, dude,
is TV shows and movies. I have zero like real life experience with it. And I know better enough not to do some dumb shit that Jenny's doing. And she's in law enforcement and PI. Like, she was a PI and law enforcement, and she's going to blow this dude's cover just what? Like, casually, like it doesn't matter, and she doesn't understand?
We've seen her go to his hotel room like 7 or 8 times this season. Like for real.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and it's not like a different hotel, or he is like, hey, we should meet up, and he's still really into her, but they're trying to sneak around and do something. She is going to where he lives currently.
Like, I get it. When he went to her place, it's like, okay, sure, nobody's looking there, But she's like, nah, I'm going to go to where you live, where all of your cartel buddies know you live, because perhaps one of them might drop by, or it's so stupid.
It's probably cheaper to film. Like, there's probably a set that's just a motel room that's way cheaper than a house set, so they just keep filming it there instead of at her house.
But yeah, if a dumb shit like Smiley can figure out that he's with a cop, and get the jump on them and figure it out without them knowing it, then you're screwing up really badly in your what you're doing.
Someone who's got a dumbass giant smiley face tattoo on their hand and has no other visible tattoos. They have not made some very good life choices.
Yeah. I love where he hid the drugs in the tank. That was great. But yeah, that's about it. 2 weeks before we get the next couple episodes. So I'm guessing it'll go out with a bit of a bang, since it's going into the winter. holidays, but with Jag coming in, so clearly something is about to escalate. Maybe it'll start another story arc or whatever after the winter break. I don't know, but we will be here to cover it and talk about it. You got anything else?
No, I don't.
All right. Well, we appreciate everyone listening. What are we doing? Oh yeah, Dexter. We're reviewing Dexter. Wheel of Time. We got the first 3 episodes reviewed up on the channel. Check that out. I don't know if we're going to get it up this week or next week or whatever. I am going to look at was it Yellow Jackets?
Yes.
I'm going to check it out, and if if we do it, it will jump into whatever week the episode is. So if it's like week 3 or 4, I don't know. It looks really good. I was looking into it. I know there's a bit of a mystery revolving around it. We've had a few requests in the comment section. So we might do that.
Yeah, I was just powered through it as soon as it ended, but
I think there's only like 2 episodes up already.
Yeah, I think so, because it started the week after Dexter.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
We're not doing Hawkeye. I'm sorry if anyone was looking forward to that. I told Larry. I was like, dude, you got to watch the first episode and tell me if it's worth even my time. What other show? I don't know. I'll look. There's a lot of content coming up. A lot of movies, actually. But yeah, appreciate everyone listening. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.